From Castle Rexworth and the Rexworth Estates, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. My name is Rexworth, Lord Rexworth, and I'm joined tonight by Zoe the Demon Fox. We are going to be continuing our weekly reading, ASMR, of her book, The Realm, A Tale of Blood and Souls. Zoe, how are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Excited to see what happens next here. A lot of this is a cold reading for me, I will admit, chat. So I have no idea what's going to happen next, and so a lot of my reactions and a lot of my sort of voice acting parts that I put into it have been completely ad-libbed, as we saw last week with the out of nowhere yelling of silence, which is now a redeem on my channel. Allow me to demonstrate for those of you who are watching over on my side. Let's see. I've got way too many redeems for my own good, and I do need to pare those down. Let's see. Where did I put it? Oh yes, it's over. It's down towards the bottom. There we go. Well, that's not the right button. There we go. Silence! Lovely. So yes, that's available. That is available for 300 for 300 nobility points to all followers and subscribers. So, right, we are about. I'm looking at our page count here. We've got about just over 200 pages here.
We're only on chapter 15 out of 70, so it's going to be a long road.
Well, looking at the page count, I mean, it would appear that we're about 1/4 of the way through. That's the way I like to look at it, anyway.
That's fair.
So, I mean, we're making good progress. This is just our third week, and we're 1/4 of the way through, and we'll probably be maybe add in another 1/8 there. So, nearly, I think this week and next week we could, we'll probably be halfway through this, yeah. Right. So, anything you want to plug, Zoe, before we get started?
Oh yes, my card that is on my Twitter.
All right. Yeah, everybody make sure that Zoe's Twitch page is tagged on the stream title for mine, and vice versa. I'm tagged on hers, so everybody, please make sure you're following both of us. Do give us a follow across all platforms. Follow Zoe, not just here on Twitch, but also follow, you upload VODs to YouTube, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and also Twitter, of course. But yeah, follow across all platforms. All of my links are available at the website lordrexworth.com. Again, that is lordrexworth.com. Just type that into your web browser, and out she comes. All right. We had left off on chapter 15. The title is The Queen Remembers. Shall we get underway?
Let's.
All right. Zoe, Calico, and Styx had remained on their guard for the rest of their trek, yet they were not beset upon any more after the initial strike. Under the cover of the still pouring rain, the trio managed to get up to the marble walls of Heaven's Gate when an earlier issue was brought back to the front. Styx crossed her arms and looked up.
How do we climb this? A better question is, where are the guards? I know we're walking around in the rain and it's foggy, but my halo glows in the dark.
Styx looked down at the ground. Salem had said he and Oedipus had worked hard to make the sword as easily attainable as possible.
He did this.
Zoe walked over and laid an arm across the watcher's shoulder, leaning against her.
He who?
Styx shook her head with a nervous smile.
Nothing.
Calico sighed.
If I knew the right runes, I could get us in there.
Styx shrugged Zoe's arm off.
Why can't you just fly us over the wall?
Calico looked Styx dead in her gray eyes.
Because you two are heavy and my wings aren't that strong.
Zoe looked offended, but Styx just shook her head with a chuckle.
Not to mention, I'm worried about us being seen. Something feels off about this.
Styx lightly slapped herself a few times.
I have an idea.
All eyes turned to Zoe, who visibly hesitated.
Teleportation is a rare trait amongst demons. I think we've established by now that I'm the missing queen, right?
Nasa, hello, welcome in. Styx and Calico nodded slowly.
So, if the legends are right, and I really am the first demon, I should be powerful enough to teleport all of us together.
Styx and Calico shared a look, followed by Calico shrugging.
Worst case scenario, we missed the target by a few feet, I guess. But, Zoe, you can only teleport to places you've seen.
The fox demon grinned.
Alex, you've been here before. Describe the throne room to me.
Zoe turned to Styx.
Imagination is a powerful thing.
Calico gripped her wrist tightly. Ah. Got that word stuck in my mouth. Hang on. Let's try that again. Calico gripped her wrist tightly, trying to think of the best way to describe Ulrich's throne room.
Gigantic, beautiful, mostly empty except for the white carpet leading from the entrance to the throne itself, with marble pillars at regular intervals. Designed to be intimidating, like Darkstone's throne room.
She gestured.
Huge stained glass behind the throne itself shaped like Petra.
Zoe gave a nervous smile and held out her arms. Her two companions grabbed on.
I think I got a good enough picture. If I fuck this up, find asbestos and kill him for me, would you, Alex?
She did not wait for a reply. They blinked, surrounded by freezing darkness, but in the next blink, they were standing near the entrance to the throne room. There were strangely no guards here either. Calico laughed nervously.
You did it. This is... oh fuck, I can't remember.
Random guard? Oh, Korath.
Yeah, that's Korath.
Okay. That will be far enough. Zoe's smile turned to a frown, and she spun round to face the throne.
We're having a moment here, asshole. Not every day that...
She stopped. Ulrich stood in front of his throne, a dark blade gripped in one hand and a faintly glowing one in the other, an angelic blade. In front of him, and slightly to the side, stood a 7-foot-tall soldier, armored head to toe. Grasped idly was a poleaxe, ornate, yet demonic in design. Zoe squinted for a moment before her eyes widened.
You're a Garanite. What are you doing here, Volt?
Silence, demon! Zoe started to walk forward, manifesting her sword.
That's no way to speak to your god, pal.
The soldier got into a battle stance. You are not my god, demon! Zoe stopped walking. Calico and Styx walked up to stand on either side, their weapons drawn. The armored helm of the Gedanite turned to each of them in turn. I know all of your names. Styx, Alexandria, Zoe. He bowed slightly. My name is Korath. I serve the Orders, and I've been tasked to protect the High King. You will go no further. Zoe gave a smug grin.
This is a terrible time, but I have to go, run downstairs really fast.
That's all right. We can take a short break here.
I'll be quick.
Okay. Let me just highlight where we are so I don't lose my place chat. Because we have several paragraphs on one page. Anyways, both chats, hope you're doing well this evening. Hope you all had a good day. Again, website is lordrexworth.com. That's lordrexworth.com. Follow me across all platforms, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Kick. Got a few more ASMR things dropping soon. Oh, and Saturday, do join me on Scourgy's channel, because I am going to be voicing the character Malamos in the game Catalyst Blind Faith. We had an audition this past weekend, and it went very well. And looking forward to Looking forward to doing a live performance of that. Also, quite pleased to report that Just Right Studios, the creator of Catalyst Blind Faith, has agreed to join the indie video game festival that Project Astadia is hosting called the Pixel Paradise Festival. Details on that coming soon. But exciting times in the world of his lordship. I see some movement of a model. Oh, how cute. Leaning a little furry head on my shoulder. How sweet.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
That's alright. Looked like you were leaning your head on my shoulder.
Aw.
How sweet.
Which way? Is it this way or the other way?
No, other way. Yeah, there you go. Close enough.
Where were we? So I guess.
Anyway. Let's see. Zoe gave a smug grin.
Well, my friends can't go any further, but last I checked, even human mages can't teleport.
She deliberately looked over the fact the human mage had indeed done that earlier.
So I'll just go through you. I think my companions here can take you just fine.
Korath glanced back at Ulrich, who gave a slight nod. The grey-bearded king got into a fighting stance as well. Very well. I cannot argue with the truth of the situation. However, my lord Ulrich may surprise you, queen of demons. Korath walked forward until he deemed he'd given ample room for Zoe and Ulrich to battle, then stepped aside. Zoe hesitated.
That's
Come!
Ulrich.
Oh. Come, demon fox. Your fight is with me. Ulrich watched as Zoe started to walk forward. As she stepped past Korath, he stepped back onto the carpet, preventing Calico and Styx from trying to follow. Not that they had tried.
2-on-1 doesn't seem all that fair, does it? You seem like the honorable sort. Should I have Styx step back?
Korath's helm shook, left, then right, before his gaze locked back onto Calico. Fear not, Fallen One. I am willing to face you both at once. I prefer it, in fact. I cannot consider it fair otherwise.
Sounds just like a Garanite seeking a fight to me. Let's get this over with.
Calico ran forward and swung her blade as a gunshot rang out at the same time. Calico staggered back confused. She had clearly watched her strike get blocked. Yet once she blinked, Korath was standing at her side, a smoking dent in the poleaxe blade from Styx's gunshot. The Watcher had unbalanced him as he went for a flanking stab. Korath suddenly stepped back, turned to Styx and began charging, intending to impale her with the tip of the versatile weapon. Styx waited until the last possible moment and sidestepped, but in the next blink she stumbled, hearing sparks fly and blades impact. Korath was by Calico, and she had narrowly blocked an overhead swing with her sword.
The poleaxe is an artifact.
Styx quickly raised her pistol and fired, yet the bullet did not find its mark, instead slamming into one of the throne pillars. Korath was suddenly nowhere to be seen, and a glance only showed Zoe and Ulrich fighting over Dominion of Misery's End. It is called contradiction. Styx quickly spun round, but Korath slapped her gun from her hands, and it slid across the floor into the shadows. I discovered it in the frozen wastelands of Gerani before I came to serve King Ulrich.
Styx!
Korath raised his poleaxe, but by now Styx had a good enough theory of how the weapon worked. As the poleaxe came down, she closed her eyes tightly and waited. She heard a clang and opened her eyes to see Korath blocking a strike he could not have reacted to from his initial action.
How the hell do we fight this?
Zoe had given no time to allow Ulrich to say any more words to her. As soon as she had reached him, she began swinging Hellbringer with all her might. Ulrich was no Argos, but his skill with dual wielding was exceptional, despite missing a few opportunities to strike. She had begun to gain the upper hand on the High King as he grunted occasionally in exertion, but Calico's scream offered a faint distraction, and with her guard down, Zoe grunted quietly as she felt the angelic sword pierce her stomach. I am aware that angelic blades provide more lasting damage than demonic ones. A pity. It would have been poetic to strike down the Hell Queen with her own blade. Zoe looked down at the blade that Ulrich was still holding, then started to giggle as she looked back up at the King of Sigmata.
Sorry, Ulrich, you missed my heart by quite a bit there.
His eyes widened, and he quickly tried to pull the sword back out of the fox demon, but she grabbed his wrist and pulled him closer, sliding the sword blade deeper through her body. Ulrich swung his other hand to beat Zoe with the hilt of Misery's End, but she grabbed his wrist. With such close proximity, she could feel the power of her true sword.
So that's why you're dual-wielding. I can sense it rebelling against you, Ulrich. I don't think my sword likes you very much.
Let go of me, demon! Zoe giggled again.
With pleasure.
She quickly raised her leg and kicked Ulrich hard in the stomach, causing his angelic blade to slide out of Zoe's abdomen. With a sickening sound of ripping flesh and a geyser of blood, the strength of Zoe's kick ripped Ulrich's other arm off. Zoe didn't even flinch as her wound regenerated rapidly. She ripped the cold, dead fingers off her sword and grabbed it, wincing as a memory entered her mind.
Figure with stretch and hydrate, Cassie. I don't need a demon form to kill a traitor like you, Nox. What?
Ulrich stood up, still bleeding profusely from his shattered arm stump, and also from his nostrils, but he gripped his angelic blade tightly with one hand, and with a battle cry, sprinted forward and locked blades with the Queen of Hell. She grinned.
Quite the constitution you got there, Ulrich.
Another memory forced its way into her mind.
Death will not hold her, Satan. You must destroy her identity.
The spike of pain caused Zoe to stumble backwards slightly, and Ulrich sneered as he seemed to get the upper hand. I will destroy you here and now, demon! Without the burden of wielding Misery's End, Ulrich seemed to have gotten faster, and Zoe was forced onto the defensive as she struggled against memories assaulting her mind. As she blocked another strike, her very vision changed. She was standing in her dark throne room in Castle Darkstone, laughing at a large bloody gash on her arm, while Eris backed away fearfully.
My queen, I didn't mean to.
The queen petted her small bodyguard on the head as the wound began to rapidly regenerate.
Eris, if I were you, I would be proud. You not only hit me, you made me bleed. You become the best swordswoman in hell at this rate.
As Zoe's vision returned to reality, she found herself bumping into Ulrich's throne and slipping to a knee, quickly gripping her sword by the blade and hilt and raising it to block an overhead swing from Ulrich. She snarled and shoved back with enough force to floor the injured king. Her vision changed again. She was sitting on Styx's ferry, half asleep, and watching her lover reach into the water and pull out a blue crystal. She squinted.
Hey, Styx, what's that?
The watcher quickly dropped it back into the River of Souls and smiled nervously.
Nothing. Just some garbage the souls dug up from the bottom. I thought you were sleeping. I was.
Her vision returned to reality briefly. Her vision returned to reality briefly to show her slipping under a frantic swing of Ulrich's blade before she kneed him in the gut. Her vision swam and changed again. She stood at the edge of the desert of purity. Next to her was a very familiar angel.
You don't have to do this, you know.
The angel shook her head.
Petra already knows I can't die.
She reached up to her dark metal halo in the shape of a crown and gripped it, pulling it down and holding it out.
I will serve as one of his high saints, and the people believe the Queen of the Fallen is dead. The rebellion will end and my people will stop dying. Do we still have our deal?
Zoe gripped the halo, the raven crown, and nodded.
I promised you the Fallen would always have a haven in hell, and I meant it. Good luck, Alexandria Calico.
Again the vision swirled, showing yet another memory. The Queen of Hell sat on her throne, leaning on her fist as Nox spoke to her.
No secret that you harbor affection for the Watcher, but perhaps a demon of more noble spawning. Perhaps even...
The Queen raised her hand for silence.
Noxie, with a sudden concern about my successor. Sure, I goof off when people die sometimes, but hell has thrived under my rule. The people love me. Besides, I've ruled for centuries. Are you afraid I'll be the first to discover if demons truly do die from old age?
Nox shook his empty skull slightly before replying enthusiastically.
Apologies, my queen. I was simply enlightened from the text of Cagliostro. He believes that River Angelica He believes that via River Angelica we may be able to.
Zoe's vision changed one more time. As she fought hard against the dark saints that were determined to overthrow her, she noted that Evelyn was not present, yet with the blow that sealed her fate and knocked her to the floor, she saw far above her throne room, in the shadow-concealed rafters, a figure, Styx, holding the essence of Apocalypse, and watching.
You.
Back in reality, the Queen of Hell stood shaking. Her knuckles were bloody, which was nothing compared to Ulrich, laying beaten half to death at her feet. She slowly turned to face the others. Styx stood uncertainly by a pillar, using it to protect her back, whilst Calico had taken flight. Neither seemed to be capable of getting the upper hand on Korath, yet all combat stopped as all eyes turned to see the Queen pick up Misery's End from the ground and begin walking towards them.
Zoe, be careful.
Several things happened suddenly in quick succession. Styx stepped away from the wall, and Korath seemed to appear behind her. Misery's End lunged forward, piercing through both their bodies. Zoe saw another memory. She stood in front of Petra's throne angrily. He waved his hand dismissively. It is not my fault nor my concern that these trinkets and weapons are appearing in the mortal world.
If you hadn't...
Petra interrupted. Saint of blood, he chuckled. You come to accuse me of a crime I did not commit, and yet you are the one that convinced Thomas Beddoe to kill his family and claim the gilded throne. It was you that provided the first necromantic text to Silverland that led to the creation of the Lich King. He stood, frowning now beneath his hood. It was you that told Thomas Beddoe to sack Blackrock Spire, and from there hence the artifacts began to appear. Zoe stepped back nervously as Petra walked down the stairs of his throne. It was you that corrupted my son and assassinated one of the first kings of Midheim and started the ancient war. You may not have your memories, bloodied one, but your crimes still remain. Zoe shook her head.
There was no way all of that was me. I destroyed the pillar to get back at Nox.
The Queen snarled as her vision showed reality again. She twisted Misery's End slightly. Blood poured from Korath's helmet and from Styx's nose.
Zoe, by the obsidian throne, what have you done?
Calico started to run over, but Styx quickly raised a weak arm.
Hey, Pixel Doctor, thank you for the raid. Welcome to the stream where I read a book I wrote, with Rexworth here.
Welcome, Raiders.
And have a shout out. Oh, you're playing Dark Souls Remastered. How'd that go?
How apropos you should raid in here.
Stay back, Calico.
She coughed, a sad smile on her lips.
I'm so sorry you had to remember this way.
Zoe's fingers wrapped tighter around the hilt of Misery's End, and she hesitated. A flood of voices began to pound on the inside of her head. Accusations, insults, pleas, requests. Promises made and promises broken. But what rose above the cacophony was a single voice. A single memory.
Why does the amulet say Saint of Blood, not Queen of Blood? Well, queens come and go, but I like the idea the humans came up with for saints. They'll last forever, and, well, you're my saint. I love you. I love you too. I love you.
Zoe blinked. A tear slid down her cheek, and with a sudden heave, she ripped Misery's end out of Styx as cleanly as possible, letting the blade vanish as she caught the falling Watcher and gently slid to her knees.
This isn't what I wanted. Zoe, find the others, Calico. Get them home safely. Tell them the Queen of Hell has returned. Tell them that I'm sorry.
With a red flash, she teleported with Styx. She had no idea how she remembered it, but she had managed to teleport into her old room back in Castle Darkstone. Zoe quickly laid Styx's weak body on the hell silk blankets of the enormous bed before pulling open the Watcher's cloak and pulling up her shirt. The wound had stopped bleeding.
Zoe, you are not dying on me, Styx.
Tears flowed freely down the fox demon's face as she frantically but efficiently searched her quarters, coming across a dusty chest. Opening it, revealed it to be filled with warpstone. With surprising efficiency, she found a few purple warpstones and ripped the bottom of the blankets, returning to Styx and crushing the stones before wrapping the fragments tightly against the wound. Styx closed her eyes tightly for a moment, until the pain of having the fragments pressed against her wound cleared.
I'm gonna go find us some food. It's been a long day.
Zoe quickly stood and started to walk out of the room. She stopped in the doorway, about to say something, then shook her head and quietly closed the door behind her as she left the room. Styx breathed slowly, occasionally gritting her teeth as her wound throbbed. After a while, she managed to pass into a fitful sleep. Chapter 16. The Soul Queen's First Servant. Despite her injuries, this was possibly the calmest week the Watcher had ever had. She had no way of knowing what was going on outside of Darkstone's walls, as Zoe refused to tell her, instead focusing entirely on Styx. The fallen queen stayed by Styx's side constantly, and when she wasn't there, she was cleaning up the castle. Due to the lack of visitors, it was unlikely that others even knew they were there. As Solaris lit up the realm of hell on another slow day, Styx was roused from a fitful slumber by a voice. Am I voicing Salem?
Yeah, you were.
Oh, right. Remind me again. Salem's... just...
scheming know-it-all.
Oh, right. Okay. I did not expect her to try to kill you. But other than that, she's exceeded my expectations. Styx's grey eyes opened slowly, and she sighed, managing to push herself up to a sitting position. Salem stood at the foot of the bed, arms clasped in front of him.
What do you want?
Salem bowed slightly and walked over to Styx's bedside, pulling over the chair Zoe had used to sit by her side. I did tell you I would return after the Queen retrieved her blade. Styx nodded slowly. He did say that. Honestly, I'd expected her to cast you out after remembering your contribution to her fall. This is a welcome surprise. Styx frowned.
You said you'd come back, and here you are. So what do you want? Trying to convince me to take her place again?
Salem nodded. Indeed. The fox is in no condition to rule any longer. Whether she returns to her roots and remains as she is, leaving her as ruler will either lead to another war, or a more violent attempt to keep her off the Obsidian throne. None of the Dark Saints can fit the mantle of ruler either, but you, as a demon, a Mirka, last of your aspect, would make a perfect ruler. Styx's eyes widened, and Salem chuckled. Your fallen friend was so close to the truth, but she couldn't find your old village. You stand as the final Mirka, last demon in all of hell to hold the soul aspect. It is why you were assigned as Watcher of the River. Styx hesitated, clenching her fist. She looked away.
How do I know you're not lying?
Firstly, the game of lies befits neither of us, Watcher. Secondly, I destroyed Mirka. I released a plague of madness that caused the residents to consume each other's souls. It seems that besides you, one survived. You ask how I could dare claim you hold the soul aspect? Simple. He pointed at Stick's hand. You command the soul flame. You were assaulted by the survivor, and in your panic, you used your powers, erasing his soul. In addition, you feel at ease when the river is full, do you not? Otherwise, why ask the fallen one for souls in exchange for your trips? The room fell silent for a few moments.
If you want me to hurt Zoe to take the throne from her, then...
She paused as Salem held out a rolled-up scroll. Insurance. This contract signs away my soul to you. You could kill me at any time if you decided you no longer trusted me. Styx hesitated. She felt a sudden urge to grab the paper. She reached out slowly but hesitated again. Salem continued to hold out the paper. Styx, Mirka. The other saints still scheme against the Queen, and with her return, they will surely seek her death. She is in no position to face them all a second time. As you know, Nox has grown tired of your continued existence. If the Queen falls, you will fall soon after. You are more powerful than you could possibly imagine, Styx. Allow me to assist and serve you. Allow me to bring you soul contracts and teach you how to use your aspect.
If I take this contract, I'd have claim over you as an individual, right?
Salem nodded.
Bringing me contracts, controlling so many people,
You will need more than ghosts to protect yourself and those you see as friends, Styx. I'm aware of my reputation, but please, trust me. Styx's fingers slowly wrapped around the contract shakily. As she took it from Salem's hand, the paper ignited with green flame and quickly burned away. While nothing seemed to happen to Salem, Styx pressed a hand against her chest. She could feel her connection to his soul now. He belonged to her. Salem slid off the chair and bent the knee. I am at your service, Queen of Souls. Styx gripped the blankets tightly for a moment. She had sort of expected a more dominating type of control, but she could easily tell Salem was still acting of his own free will. She wondered. I see the glint in your eye, my queen. What is it you desire? Styx clenched her eye shut tightly and relented. She wanted to test something.
bring me the soul of Grimnir Frostspike.
A simple frost aspect demon that lived out alone in the Blight Glades. If anything somehow went horribly wrong, he would be far out of the way. Living or dead, Your Grace? Styx looked unconcerned.
Living? I don't want you going around hurting people in my name, Salem.
He raised his hands placatingly. A joke, my queen. I apologize. It will take me some time to convince Grimnir to part with his soul, but do not worry. I will not appear at an inopportune time. Salem melted onto the floor, leaving Styx breathing heavily. Evil and suspicions, Nox's blatant admittance of her identity, even Salem's words, none of it had felt real until she took his soul. And now that she had, a part of her wondered just how many she could get. Another realized, in slight fear, just how easily she had taken to allowing Salem to refer to her as Queen. She laid down, pulling the blanket over her head. Raven, welcome into chat. Demon of Mirka, Queen of Souls, Styx snorted. She was just Styx. Zoe's below. Well, was she truly ever that to begin with? She wasn't sure why Zoe was showing remorse, but the fact it took being stabbed for Zoe to start caring this much. Styx sighed. She decided to think about something else. Salem had made a rather good point, but she could not deny. Zoe was no longer at the peak of her power, and if the other Dark Saints tried to kill her again... Styx heard footsteps approaching and poked her head out just as the door opened. Zoe entered with a metal tray stacked with food and 2 metal goblets.
I snuck out of the castle and picked up some supplies in Hell's Gate. I figured tonight we'll have a little feast.
She smiled as she laid the tray down on the bedside table.
Sounds great. Thank you, Zoe.
Was any of it genuine love? Or was this all remorse for her wound? Styx shook her head slightly and sat up again, laughing at a joke Zoe told, and reached for one of the goblets. Better to just rest and recover. She'd think about it later, and would see what happened when Salem returned with a soul contract.
What you think so far?
It's good. It's getting interesting. It's getting very interesting.
Anything stick out to you?
These little twists and turns and, yeah, it's, little bits of, you know, all these secret contracts and, cloak and dagger stuff and betrayal. It's just, it's all good. It's all really good. And I'm enjoying playing Salem. He's a mischievous one.
Salem's actually one of my favorite characters in this book.
I hope I'm getting the voice right. I don't know how I approached him last week, but this week I don't know. I approached him as more, I guess, serpentine and snake-like. Honestly, I'm taking a lot of inspiration from Andrew Robinson's portrayal of Elam Geddick from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I always thought he was like one of the perfect sort of like anti-villain characters.
Salem is like... his whole shtick is making people crazy, but he is a lot better at scheming than Erebus is, and she's the one that's supposed to be good at it, because she's the Dark Saint's deception.
Hmm. But how am I doing with the portrayal so far? Is it good?
It's pretty good, yeah.
Alright. We'll keep working on it.
I would say pull off the Serpentine a little bit, because he's pretty nice to Styx.
Okay.
Like, he's trying to get her to trust him.
Interesting.
That's all I got, really, because I can't say too much or it will be spoilers.
Ah. Fair.
Time for one of my favorite things, codexes. Codex of Knowledge, Hell. The realm of Hell, the second dimension created after Essence. Hell's regions exist as twisted mockeries of the mortal realm, and the entire dimension seems to exist within a gigantic cavern of which no one has found the walls. As with Heaven, Hell has not been entirely mapped out, yet like Heaven, contains 9 regions. The Blight Glades. The twisted meadows and sloping hills of the Blight Glades could fool many to thinking they are some corrupted version of Silverland. The grass is gray and struggles to stand. The trees are sickly green with yellow leaves, and dotted around the region are prosperous demon villages. The glades have their own twisted beauty, and also exist as an origin point for all 3 of Hell's primary realm-spanning rivers, Demonica, Sapphire, and the River of Souls. While the rivers run parallel in some areas, they primarily are far from each other, winding around Hell until uniting again at the Black Port of Hell's Gate. The Eternal Forest. Before the Dark Kingdom was established, the forest was small, and existed as a part of the Blight Glades, but over the centuries, began to spread throughout Hell. only kept at bay by Demonica and the River of Souls, one of which acts as a border, the other cutting straight through. Through some sort of sentience or erosion, despite only blocking one end of the region, the forest almost seems to fear the rivers, and its spread does not cross them. The Eternal Forest contains the largest variety of hellish trees, blightwood, darkwood, saltwood, and many others, and due to its rapid growth, is an infinite source of one of Hell's primary building materials, that being darkwood. The Eternal Forest is home to many ruined settlements, outlaws on the run from authority and monstrous beasts that put the dark fauna of Garrony to shame. Many legends surround that the Eternal Forest is itself a gigantic but naturally made altar, of which dream demons are born. The Sapphire Ocean. On the northeastern end of the Eternal Forest lies the Sapphire Ocean, a beautiful sea that shimmers with hellish coral and colorful fish below its majestic blue waters. In addition to being a buffer to stop the spread of the Eternal Forest, many coastal cities dot its edges, and is one of the places Demonica flows close by of, allowing transfer between the two bodies of water. Molisco. While not technically a region, Molisco is still a major location on all official maps as the second largest city in Hell. It is also a refuge and haven of Fallen, and boasts the highest population of Fallen in the entirety of Hell. While their numbers are small, some pure angels also dwell within the settlement. And it was also here that Lilith, the Dark Saint of Desire, was born. Molisco sits on the coast of the Sapphire Ocean, and sometimes at night, one can see Hell's Gate and Darkstone Castle, far across the ocean on the other side of the Warpstone Quarries. The Warpstone Quarries. While named as such, the Warpstone Quarries are known for far more than Warpstone. The region contains seemingly infinite sources of dark ore, the hellish versions of mortal ores, ranging from iron and marble to gold and diamonds. The region is smaller than all other regions of Hell, and sits within a somewhat rocky area on the far end of the Sapphire Ocean, away from the Eternal Forest. Hell's Gate. Both a region and a city, Hell's Gate as a city sits atop a cliff that overlooks the 7th region, the Magma Plains. Hell's Gate is the capital of the Dark Kingdom, and its namesake region contains the largest amount of demonic settlements and some smaller fallen havens. The rivers of Demonica, Sapphire, and Souls all meet at the city itself at the infamous Blackport. The Magma Plains. Up to this point, excluding the Rocky Quarry region, every region has contained various shades of grass ranging from grey and dying to a sickly but vibrant green. And all regions can be mistaken for locations in the mortal realm, if not looked at too closely. Yet the Magma Plains are more akin to the stereotype most humans hold for Hell. Beneath the cliff of Hell's Gate begins the gigantic flatlands dotted with fissures and pools of magma. Small volcanoes erupt every few days, and the region's shattered terrain is unstable at the best of times. The region's gains outweigh the risks in some cases, as it is the only place that dark obsidian can be mined. And while the demons are resistant to flames, not even fire aspect demons are totally immune to the danger that pure magma and cascading lava can pose. The Outer Circle. Sapphire turns its back on its sister rivers here, circling back on a long journey to flow back into the Sapphire Ocean, splitting off into inlets that eventually find themselves back in glades, keeping Sapphire in a closed flow loop. Demonica and the River Souls plow onward, taking their own routes through a wild but beautiful region that seems to combine traits of all other regions. Lava geysers, beautiful forests, plains of grass and fire, sloping hills. Despite the vast size of the region, it boasts only one inhabitant, the Watcher of the River of Souls, who lives in a cabin near the Soul Falls, a reverse waterfall that carries the River of Souls up a magically unscalable cliff and into the final mapped region. The Stormlands. While the only known way to truly reach this land is via the Soul Falls, it is rumored that the Stormlands surround the entirety of the mapped regions of Hell. The Stormlands are entirely unique in that they are the only region with clouds. Clouds that keep the land under a constant and violent thunderstorm. The light of Lunaris Solaris cannot reach the Stormlands, likely due to how far away the region is and the mountains that protect it from the rest of Hell. Hidden somewhere within exists the labyrinthine and ever-shifting library of the Listener, a demon of the extinct aspect of wisdom. Across the unnaturally flat plains, scorched grass creates interesting patterns that those who are lucky may follow to a gate of knowledge, one of a multitude of entrances into the so-called hidden librarium. Those that are unlucky may find themselves turned around and spit back out into Hell, or worst case scenario, killed by the everlasting storms. Many that have found ways to scale the mountains and reach the Stormlands believe that the mountains themselves are warded by one of Cagliostro's infamous black books, and that the storms are also his doing, acting as two lines of defense to protect his library. The Gates of Knowledge, nearly impossible to find, act as a third of the line of defense. None have ever returned or ever willing to speak of what lies beyond those gates.
Chapter 17. Reunions and Plans. Evelyn stuck on the... Ah. Evelyn stood on the dock of the Isle of Pillars, staring across the Sea of Secrets, idly crushing some orange warpstones she had found. Calico stood next to her, arms crossed.
Where do you think they are? It's been a week.
Evelyn shrugged.
You said Zoe had her memory back. She's probably hiding from Nox and took sticks with her.
Evelyn pulled a golden coin from her pouch, idly flipping it over her fingers with a small sigh. Calico patted her on the shoulder.
She seemed remorseful. I don't think she's the same person she was.
Evelyn shook her head slightly.
That won't stop the other Dark Saints from trying to overthrow her again. She isn't strong enough to fight them all again, and Styx still has the essence.
Evelyn stood up straight, covering her mouth. Boots thunked on the wooden deck, and both Fallen looked over to see Da Vinci. The inventor raised an eyebrow.
Always wondered who stole it. I knew she'd been part of Nox's cube, I wasn't sure what her purpose was.
Calico jerked her eyes toward Evelyn, but the inventor shrugged.
She already knows.
Da Vinci chuckled.
Turns out Eve knows how to read the rune on my eye patch. I turned Russian, fuck.
Da Vinci tapped her eye cover.
That's a rune?
Evelyn slapped Calico on the back with a smirk.
Just because you can't read demonic to save your life doesn't mean I can't.
Da Vinci cleared her throat and kicked idly at the dock.
We have bigger problems right now than what will happen to Zoe.
The inventor looked out across the ocean, her arms crossed.
You both already know that I'm the speaker, and I also lived in Paris for a time. I wrote 3 black books, and one of them is hidden there. King Zacharias has been looking for it for a long time, but once he learns of where I am, he'll come for me and my other one.
Calico sighed. Calico sighed.
Well, let me guess. All this could have been avoided if Asbestos hadn't sent an expedition to Ferris. I can't claim to know what he's playing at.
Evelyn stared at Da Vinci for a few moments, then crushed a warpstone and inhaled.
Helvete Hilded.
As a rift tore open in reality, Da Vinci and Calico looked at it.
Going somewhere.
Evelyn grabbed Da Vinci's shoulder.
I'm not, but you are. What?
Calico hesitated.
She's right. Rise misses you. I told you that myself. If something happens, you can't just keep putting it off.
The rift idly pulsed, and through its mirror-like ovoid shape, Rise's shop could be seen on the other side. Evelyn raised her eyebrows as she realized Da Vinci was shaking.
I can't go back. You can, Vince. You test angelic artifacts by yourself, despite being a demon and knowing it could kill you.
Evelyn added on.
You told me she taught you how to create things, and she gave you 2 gifts, your name and that axe in your backpack.
Evelyn pointed it out, sitting in its holster. On the backpack Da Vinci rarely took off.
What's worse, burning yourself day in, day out, or speaking to a close friend you haven't seen in God of nothing knows how long?
Da Vinci clenched her fists at her sides, looking down.
I don't want to go alone.
Evelyn smiled.
And you said you're going alone. I'm going to Darkstone anyway to see if that's where Zoe's hiding out.
Calico hesitated for a moment.
I have some business in hell as well. There's a friend of my own I want to see.
Da Vinci took a deep breath.
If you're sure.
She exhaled and stepped through the rift. In all the centuries that had passed, the demonsmith's shop hadn't changed a bit. Evelyn had headed off towards Darkstone immediately, but Calico followed Da Vinci inside. The door chimed softly with a little bell. The interior was smaller than it seemed from outside, a room spanning counter covered with glass displays, showcasing weapons and tools, all forged by the one and only Rise. A few chairs and tables sat round on the customer side of the counter for those willing to wait on certain things. Da Vinci took a backpack off and laid it on the counter, still shaking as she gripped the dark wood tightly. Calico clasped her hands in front of her, looking around the shop, then noticed that Da Vinci had glanced at a clock on the wall and was now counting down.
Vince?
As soon as the inventor hit 0, a door behind the counter opened, revealing the tall, lithe, and dark-haired beauty that was Rise, entirely human in appearance, with long, straight black hair that went down to her mid-back, and eyes with blood-red irises, a trait shared by most demons. She swigged from a whiskey bottle and walked up to the counter, focusing first on the fallen with a soft smile.
Oh, Leda Calico. It's been a while. How are you? I've been well, thank you. I brought someone to see you. Who?
It was then Rise noticed the nervously shuddering figure seemingly attached to her counter. Her eyes widened.
Jack.
Calico bowed with a small smile and left the store silently. Rise vaulted over the counter and wrapped Da Vinci in a tight hug.
It's been so long, Jackie. I've missed you so much.
Da Vinci slowly wrapped her arms around the demon smith.
I'm so sorry about Ferris. I didn't know any of that would happen. And for how I said goodbye, I'd been drinking too much. I didn't mean to.
She was interrupted by the one-eyed demon's lips pressing against her own, her face filled with shock. Da Vinci pulled away and looked off to the side.
Back then, I wasn't sure of what I wanted, Rise. I hadn't truly discovered myself.
She looked back into Rise's eyes.
I think this may be something I want, though. I want to try at least.
A tear slid down Rise's cheek, and she smiled slightly.
How about we start out small then? Like when I taught you how to invent.
She held out her hand, which Da Vinci hesitantly took.
Let's start with this.
Rise began to pull Da Vinci to the back, and together they entered the back of the shop. It was just like Da Vinci remembered. Rise's workshop was a beautiful combination of arcane devices and dark machinery. Various mechanisms and contraptions, molded metals and alloys, innumerable pipelines lined the ceiling. Moving liquid ores and magma was pumped in from deep below ground to keep a pair of gigantic furnaces alight. A seemingly bottomless pile of warp stone from a large closed-in box was fed via conveyor belt into several crushing machines, and iron pylons stood high, electricity arcing rapidly between them, keeping the automated workshop powered.
You certainly earned your title, architect.
Rise blushed.
You said that when we first met, too. Your workshop is just as amazing as it was back then, too.
The architect pulled Da Vinci over to a smaller room to the side, smaller and more docile compared to the loud churning machinery of the workshop. Magical wards on the connecting walls dampened the sound, and a few work tables held weapons in various states of completion, some not fully forged, some with runes still being painstakingly etched in. Another doorway led from this smaller workshop into Rise's sleeping quarters. Rise let go of Da Vinci's hand and vanished into the dorm for a moment, coming back with a brown leatherback book and laid it on a table.
I kept your codex safe. Wait, fuck. I kept your codex safe, like you asked. I hope you don't mind if I've continued trying to copy your style a little.
Da Vinci smiled.
Maybe it's my turn to play teacher then. Show me some of the stuff you've made from my style.
As Solaris lit up the dark realm on a new day, Zoe carried Styx down to the castle's library and laid her in a comfy red chair facing the fireplace.
How you feeling?
Styx pressed a hand to the wound and felt only the smallest bit of pain. She smiled a little.
Feels a lot better.
She looked up at Zoe.
Hey, what are you going to do while I lounge around reading?
Zoe shrugged.
I asked Rise to work on something for me a couple days ago, so I'm gonna go check on her progress. After that,
She stared into the fire.
I'm gonna break into the crypt and recover an artifact.
Styx hesitated.
Did one of your memories tell you about an important one? Breaking into the guild doesn't seem smart.
Zoe manifested both Misery's End and Hellbringer, shouldering both with a grin.
I've got 2 sword sticks. I'll be fine.
At Styx's horrified expression, she quickly added,
I'm not gonna kill anyone. Memories or not, I still made friends there.
The swords vanished.
I'll break in subtly, like a vault robber.
She winked.
Do you promise?
Zoe started to lean down towards Styx, then stopped, standing up straight again and hesitating, then raised a single finger skyward.
By royal decree, I will be fined or I will suffer punishment as laid out by the Watcher. The Queen has spoken.
She clapped her hands together once, getting some laughter out of both her and Styx.
And hey, if you want to walk around, be careful, okay?
Styx nodded and reached for a book on the table next to her.
If I put my feet anywhere, it'll be on this table. Good luck. I make my own luck.
Zoe vanished with a spurt of demonic flame. Styx watched the embers rapidly dissipate.
That's new. Usually there's a flash when she teleports.
Styx was jolted awake by paper impacting the open book on her lap. She sat up and frowned down at Salem.
That was fast. You left just yesterday.
Salem knelt. Grimnir was surprisingly amicable. Not what I expected from a demon of his reputation, especially one with the appearance of a Gedonite. But I suppose looks can be deceiving. Styx hesitated before unfolding the contract. That was Grimnir's handwriting, all right, barely legible due to him being right-handed, but with the unfortunate disposition of having a frozen spike for a right arm. She jolted slightly as the contract ignited with green flame. She had subconsciously accepted it. Are there any specific souls you crave, my queen? Styx hesitated and glanced around the room, an excuse to not look at Salem. After a few moments, he stood up. If I may make a suggestion for you. Styx hesitated.
Fine. Who do you have in mind?
Lera, High Saint of Arso Purity. The slip-up. Let me try that again. Lera, High Saint of Arso Purity. The slip-up was on purpose. Salem spoke too deliberately to make accidents like that, but it made her smile a little.
Ah yes, the Saint of Arson. I know of her.
Her smile faded.
Why though?
Salem clasped his arms behind his back. A little spider informed me that she suffered mortal wounds at the hands of Lady Calico. Although she lives, one way or another her soul will be yours, whether that be living or dead. Living would be preferable. Styx's eyebrows furrowed.
If she's dying, how will that help me?
Simple, my queen. Once you control her soul, you can heal her.
Salem, I can't even...
A thought occurred to her. There is no way, even with a warpstone additive, should a wound from Misery's End have healed so quickly. She could sense Salem's smile. Try standing, my queen. Styx hesitated, but put the book on the table and gripped the chair's armrest, pushing herself effortlessly to her feet. She found that not only could she stand completely fine, her wound did not bother her from the effort.
This is because of my powers?
Indeed, my queen. Misery's End is an extremely powerful blade. Rise's craft is nothing short of masterful. A less powerful demon would have been bedridden for several months at least, yet here you stand.
There's no way my aspect is as powerful. That's ridiculous.
Salem nodded. Perhaps you're right. I have theorized that you've grown stronger than a normal soul demon due to the essence of Apocalypse dwelling within the River of Souls. You control the river after all. Any energy it siphons would be provided to you. However, the demons of Mirka were quite powerful on their own. Styx slowly sat back down.
Were they?
Do not forget, I met them, my queen. They were quite powerful. Yet I can say as straight fact, you are far stronger than any of them. Now then, do you permit me to bring you the soul of the Saint of Purity? Styx's thoughts fell into heavy conflict, but she nodded slightly. She looked away from him. Oh, that's actually supposed to be your line. Is it?
Where?
No.
No?
No, that's my line. Sorry. Do not forget that you have my soul, Styx. The softer tone surprised her, and she turned back to Salem. We both know if you ever thought I was lying, you could destroy me easily. You know I am right, and that I do truly seek to help you. One day, you will be strong enough to acquire souls on your own, and I will serve you loyally until you no longer need me. Styx startled slightly, hearing footsteps approaching the library, but Salem ignored it. I will return soon enough, my queen. May our souls endure and deny all invitations to the river of death. She could sense a mischievous smirk as Salem melted into the ground. That was her phrase. The library door opened and Styx heard the sound of crushed warpstone fragments tinkling off the floor.
Guess she is hiding here. Fire's lit.
Styx stood up and turned around nervously, holding her arm. Evelyn gasped and quickly ran over to hug the Watcher.
Styx, we've been wondering where you were. How are you? I'm alright.
Styx laughed nervously. While she was happy to see her friend, she was worried just how much she was looking forward to laying claim to Leda's soul. She returned Evelyn's hug, another thought entering her mind. Why couldn't Zoe hug her like this? Chapter 18. A Puppet Without Strings. Several days passed uneventfully across all three realms. The quiet was deafening, and yet the spy masters of the various factions at play could find nothing to report on. The air felt about to burst. Deep below the slum district of Hell's Gate, Salem entered the council room of the Dark Saints. Ignis and Deimos talked quietly. Oedipus sat hugging her knees in the corner, while Nox and Lilith argued back and forth about some seemingly trivial matter. Salem smirked smugly, and then walked over to his next... Salem smirked smugly, then walked over to his seat next to Nox and sat down. Silence suddenly filled the room, and all eyes turned to the Saint of Madness as he clasped his hands together on the table, twiddling his thumbs, raising an interested eyebrow beneath his hat. Oh, don't let me interrupt. I'm aware, yet again, late. But it seems nothing of importance was being discussed anyway. He looked around for a moment. Where's our dear puppet lord? Lost control of your dog, Lilith? The bat-winged angel scoffed.
You were done Lilith last time.
Oh, did I? Oh. I thought he was your dog, Salem. You should take better care of your pets. Speaking of pets, what are you up to? Salem tilted his head in confusion. Whatever do you mean? Simply asking what I did does not narrow down the list of things I have done, Lilith. I'm talking about Lada. I know you're behind it. She slammed one of the daggers onto the table, impaling the blade. I haven't the faintest idea what you're on about, Lilith. Nox sighed.
Ignore her. She is simply afraid. Petra has reported that Lara, despite her mortal injuries, suddenly began to heal and vanished from heaven.
Salem raised his hands up at his sides, resisting the urge to grin. That information was technically true, but a false implant. At least it was false, until he returned the contract under his hat to Styx. And this is my fault because of what? Lilith breathed through her clenched teeth. Don't play coy, you bastard. Lilith, you honor me. But I drive people insane, not heal them. Besides, I am deeply humbled that you think I could put together some sort of scheme behind your backs. But that isn't my job. That's her job. He inclined his head towards Erebus. Speaking of which, what is wrong with her, Lord Knox?
As I'm sure you are aware, Erebus takes great pride in her schemes and plans for every eventuality. However, Lara's recovery was something none of us foresaw.
Salem rubbed his chin. Indeed, I can see where that would be an issue. Petra didn't send Argos into the dark steppes to intercept Alexandria Calico for the Saint of Arson to survive the encounter.
Purity.
Whatever. However, I am curious. Do explain to me how you think this is my doing? Knox placed his bony hands on the table, palms down, and looked straight ahead.
We have no other proof other than the fuck. We have no other proof other than the peculiarity of your constant and consistent absences from our meetings.
Salem chuckled. Lord Knox, as your primary enforcer, it is not my duty to go about the realm and, well... Let me try that again. Lord Knox, as your primary enforcer, is it not my duty to go about the realm and, well, enforce? Deimos and Ignis shared a look before Ignis put his flaming feet on the table. A short one has a point. Oedipus made a mistake. Oedipus stood up now, breathing heavily, and spoke quietly.
I don't make mistakes. Mistakes get people killed. Get me killed.
Salem smirked and looked over at her. I've said this before, Oedipus, yet you really don't seem to like hearing it. You are the saint of deception. It is okay to admit that you are lying to yourself that your plans are infallible. We do not think any less of you. Oedipus stared angrily at Salem.
Shut up, midget.
Knox clapped his hands together once, and the room fell silent. Salem looked round for a moment. I truly am curious where Phobos is, Lord Knox.
I sent him to Darkstone.
Salem's constant aura of smugness never faded, but internally he felt a jab at his cold heart. He had not given Phobos instructions on what to do about Styx. Why in the 9 hells would you do that? Thankfully, Lilith asked the question Salem wanted answered.
Think you're such magic, Cassie? The Queen has returned, Lilith. My spies cannot locate her, so it's likely she's returned to Darkstone. I'd merely sent him to check up on the castle.
Salem willed a bead of sweat to fade. If Phobos found Styx under Nox's orders, the damn scarecrow would probably try to kill her and Salem's scheme would unravel. He needed to get to the castle and intercept the puppet demon.
You voiced Demos last time.
Oh. Boss. Nox looked over at Demos. This meeting is going nowhere. Everyone is angry or suffering from failure. Oedipus gritted her teeth.
You make a valid observation, Demos. This meeting is null. Return to your duties.
Nox faded into shadow. Rifts opened, wings unfurled. The room cleared out quickly. Salem melted into the ground. He had to return to Darkstone quickly, but he was too smart to return straight there. And so, he had went to Malisco to drop his tail. Lilith thought she was stealthy, but her aspect was not the same as his, and she was very poor at the game of shadows. Salem sighed. At this rate, Styx would be forced to use her powers. In a way, Nox had inadvertently helped Salem scheme, but at the same time, he had wanted to ease the Watcher into the role of a queen and help her understand her aspect. I will return to you soon, my queen. Be safe. Chapter 19. The Power of the Soul Flame. Styx wandered the hallways of Castle Darkstone by herself. The last time she'd been here was before Zoe had been overthrown. The Fox Demon had cleaned up quite a bit in the week they'd been here. But now, she'd been gone for 3 days. She did promise not to hurt anyone, so Styx assumed she was struggling to find a way into Asbestos's vault still. Styx stopped at the doorway to the library and sighed. Despite Evelyn finding her here, no one else had come to visit, and the Fallen had not returned. Styx assumed the other Dark Saints were wary of something. At some point, a bouquet of blood roses had appeared in the library, without any card or indication of who brought them. Styx leaned against the library's doorway and stared at the roaring flames in the fireplace. She squinted and felt a soft tug in her body. The flames changed into an ever-shifting form of green and purple. Styx took a step back and blinked. The flames normal again.
Was that me?
She exhaled softly and stepped into the library, searching the shelves for something to read. There was a loud thump nearby, like a book falling. Styx froze.
Hello?
After a few moments of silence, she giggled nervously, but just as she started to grab a book, there was another thump, much closer. She hesitated and could now hear ragged breathing.
Evelyn?
Maybe the corrupted angel was blacking out on warpstone. Styx hesitated and pulled the book down from the shelf. A metal head covered by a burlap sack, with red orb-like eyes, stared at her from the other side of the bookshelf. It let out a wheezy chuckle. Styx slid the book back onto the shelf and started to walk away, trying to pretend she had not seen whatever the hell that was. She looked over her shoulder and screamed as the bookshelves began to topple, the metal and burlap puppet of Phobos crawling over them rapidly with his metal claws, his true form, an orb of pure demonic energy, in the metal cage at its center trembling with glee. Styx slid slightly and turned abruptly, running out of the library. She looked left and right, then took off down a random hallway, hearing the echoes of Phobos's wheezing laughter following behind her. Salem was beginning to get frustrated. First Melisco, then a random fissure out in the magma plains, now a small dirt road in the dark steppes of heaven. Lilith had followed him all over. Enough was enough. His dark vision was better than hers. Salem slipped behind a tree, and over the din of the ever-falling rain, he heard Lilith start running to try to catch up. As soon as she began to pass, Salem pulled a dagger and impaled it through the back of her knee, bringing her down. From there, he shoved her onto her back and impaled the dagger through one of her arms, pinning it to the ground and holding down the other with his own strength. Lilith started to scream until Salem held her jaw closed. "Do you not have anything better to do, Saint of Desire? Unless, of course, your current desire is trying my patience." He let go of her jaw to allow her to speak. "Just kill me, Salem. I know you're up to something. You're trying way too hard to get away from me." Salem laughed loudly, drowning out the rain pelting his hat. "You still believe I have something to do with Letta's disappearance? Surely you don't think Nox lied, and I also had something to do with Phobos?" Lilith gritted her teeth and smirked. "Strike me down if I'm annoying you so much, Salem. They know I'm following you." Salem was silent for a moment. He suddenly burst into laughter again, and Lilith frowned. "What the hell are you laughing at?" Salem wiped a tear from his eye and calmed down. "Oh, Lilith, dear girl, you look far too smug when you lie. You're bad at both the game of lies and the game of shadows. If I wanted to hurt you, I'd go after your husband, Samael." Lilith's demeanor faded rapidly, replaced by fear. "You wouldn't." Salem tipped his hat slightly. "The other Dark Saints don't even know you're married to a pure angel, do they?" Lilith clenched her fist. "Salem, please don't tell them, and don't hurt Sam." The Saint of Madness sat up. "Quite the change of heart, eh?" Salem produced a paper from beneath his hat. "If you sign this, I swear that no harm will come to Samael." He pulled his dagger out of Lilith's arm, and she sat up, rubbing the regenerating wound. "What's this?" "Sign it, and I'll tell you." Lilith hesitated before biting her finger, and with her blood signed the paper. "As promised, no harm comes to Samael, and I'll tell you of my plans." He rolled up the paper and stood, slipping it back under his hat to keep it dry. I'm collecting soul contracts for my queen. Lilith's eyes widened. Little Mirka bitch! Salem crossed his arms. Indeed. And now your soul will belong to her as well. Lilith opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. Lilith, I harbor no discord towards you. Allow me to offer you some advice. The Queen of Hell will not retake her throne. She will be replaced by the Queen of Souls. As for you, abandon the dark saints. Be with your loved one. My queen will call on you when the time is right. Lilith stood up slowly. Tell me this. How long have you been planning this? Salem replied without hesitation. Ever since the fall of the Fox Demon. Hell needs a ruler, Lilith. Zoe cannot retake the throne, but Nox cannot remain as Lord Regent. None of us are fit to sit upon the Obsidian throne, but the Watcher is. You have no reason to trust a word I say, Lilith, nor have I ever asked for your trust, but today I am asking. Lilith hesitated. Her thoughts turned to her husband. She sighed. Fine. Just this once I will trust you, Salem. I think I can see the end goal you're reaching for. I hope I'm right. You are. Salem held out his hand. Lilith hesitated, then shook it. A moment later, the Saint of Madness sank into the shadows. Lord Rexworth redeemed Hydrate.
A good time to hydrate.
Styx found she could run surprisingly quick when being chased by a demonic puppet thing, and although she'd banged herself up a bit, it was mostly from running into walls or tripping over benches and pedestals in the hallways. Unfortunately, she'd ended up at a dead end. Styx feebly tried to grip a wall torch and yank it out, but failed. She breathed heavily and turned slowly as she heard the metal clanking and the wheezing of Phobos approaching. Phobos stopped in front of her and raised to his full height. His eyes were almost hypnotic, and the next time Styx blinked, it was no longer Phobos, but Zoe that stood in front of her.
I should have killed you, traitor.
Styx took a deep, shuddering breath and stood defiantly against the hallucination. The false Zoe took a step back in confusion, then stepped closer.
How could I fall in love with someone as ugly and meaningless as you, lowly Watcher?
Styx gasped, and without thinking, she thrust her left arm forward. It phased through Zoe, and her fingers grasped the metal cage that contained Phobos' true form. She heard a sound like sizzling flesh, even though she was grasping metal. She could feel Phobos desperately trying to pull away, inhuman screeches echoing around the hallway, but she held on tightly. She felt words come to her mind.
Whatever your task, Phobos, you have failed. I revoke your invitation to the river, and you belong to me now.
The screech intensified, and she heard Phobos' metal limbs battering against the walls, somehow missing her entirely. Despite his unholy strength, somehow he was unable to pull away from Styx, who held firm. The torches round her changed from their normal yellow flames to the shifting green and purple like the fireplace had been earlier, casting strange shadows on the walls. With a final agonized scream, the nightmare collapsed and Styx let go, stepping back with a gasp as Phobos shuddered violently, then collapsed in a metal and burlap heap on the ground, the demonic orb at his core shivering violently. Salem rose out of the floor a few moments later, pulling 2 contracts from his hat. My queen, he paused, observing the chaos in front of him, the dancing multicolored flames, Phobos' crumpled body, Styx pressed against the wall, breathing heavily. Her eyes had changed, the left green, the right purple. She blinked, and they returned to gray, the flames returning to normal as well.
Salem, what did I do?
Salem stepped over Phobos' puppet body and gently patted Styx on the arm. You claimed his soul, my queen. I'd hope to teach you this skill later in a more controlled environment, however. I apologize for not being here to defend you. He held out the 2 contracts he had acquired. I am sorry you were forced to use your abilities, but you've added a new trick to your repertoire. Styx shakily reached out and accepted both contracts. As always, the papers were burnt away by green flames. Salem looked down at Phobos, pressing his foot against the caged orb. Apologies to you as well, Phobos. I should have informed you ahead of time. He turned to Styx. You should send him away, my queen. It would not do for the fox or the addict to find one of your servants lounging around. Styx took a shaky breath and calmed herself. She looked down at Phobos.
Phobos, continue to fulfill your duties as a Dark Saint.
She hesitated.
But do not forget who your true master is now.
The metal puppet almost immediately returned to a standing position, and with a single nod of the metal head, it stepped backwards and through an inky black shadow rift and disappeared. Salem clapped. Bravo! You are rather good at this, all things considered. He turned and looked down the hallway, rubbing his chin. Come, my queen. I'll help you restore any damages sustained to the castle. We can't have anyone asking too many questions. Styx hesitated for a moment and started to follow him back down the hallway. She could tell she had Lilith's soul in addition to Letta's.
How did you get Lilith's soul?
The same way I took Grimnir's. I told her my plans and what it is I truly desire out of making you queen. A hell free from the schemes of the saints, and a new peace for all. Styx paused for a moment, then smiled slightly.
That's not the type of thing I'd expect from you, Salem.
He chuckled. I am the saint of madness. Perhaps it is more fitting than you think. Only a psychopath could think peace is truly possible. He turned to Styx and raised his hat, revealing his face for the first time. It was clean-shaven and scarred. He smiled. Yet even in the deepest madness, there is always an inkling of sanity.
Thank you for the stretch and hydrate again, Cassie.
I will go ahead and partake in that stretch, if you don't mind.
Partake in the hydrate as well, you probably need it.
Yes. Chapter 20. The Hunt for the Raven Crown. Pacing in long circles atop the marble pillar of mankind, Zoe kicked the bones of a hasty meal off the side.
Come on, girl. You've been up here for 3 days. It's now or never.
She paused and leaned on her sword, of which she had impaled into the top of the pillar.
Come to think of it, I have my memories back. What reason do I have to take the Raven Crown now?
She hesitated for a moment, then nodded to herself with a new reasoning.
Maybe that's exactly why I should take it. I'm back. The artifacts will be safer under my protection, in Darkstone's vault.
She stood up straight and ripped Misery's End out of the marble beneath her feet, resting its dark blade upon her shoulder, other hand on her hip.
Yeah, that's it. I'll take the crown from under his nose, and a few other artifacts I'll manage. Show that prick that I can protect them better than his guild of mortals.
Zoe was... I'm sorry, what?
I was responding to chat, sorry.
Oh. Zoe was startled out of her thoughts by a smug voice behind her.
Cagliostro is back.
Oh. Remind me again, how do we approach Cagliostro's voice?
Shit, I can't remember. Know-it-all asshole, unlike Salem, he thinks he does actually know better than literally everyone around him.
Oh. Having some trouble, my queen? She whirled around, pointing Misery's End at the throat of the newcomer. Seeing that it was the robed and masked wisdom demon, the listener, She did not lower the blade, but gripped the hilt tighter.
Haven't seen you in a long time, Cag. Figured you'd had your nose stuck in a book or something.
Cagliostro chuckled and with a single finger gently pushed Zoe's blade away from his face before walking closer. I wanted to be sure the rumors were true. I had heard you returned. In fact, I happened to notice you standing up here while searching for my codexes. Cagliostro dragged a finger along Zoe's sword, causing her to lower it out of his reach. Just as beautiful as the day I commissioned it for you. His bone-white masked smile seemed to almost grow slightly. The architect does excellent work, does she not? If the Dark Saints were smarter, they would have killed her instead of destroying Hazako. The fox demon sighed and shouldered her blade.
Yes, I'm back. Now what the hell do you want? You aren't the type for casual chit-chat, as I recall.
The listener slipped his hands into the opposite sleeves as if he were a monk. A small crack etched itself along the upper forehead of his mask. You are seeking the Raven Crown, correct? I assume Salem fed you some tale about it, returning your memories. At the time, you would have been correct, but now? What reason do you still have to seek it? The Queen of Hell furrowed her brow.
I do what I want, Cagliostro. That's how it's always been. That's how it always will be.
She turned away, looking down from the high perch at the ruins of Blackrock's spire, and the guild hidden beneath its foundations. Cagliostro stepped up beside her, at the ledge. Truly? You and I both know if you retake your rightful place on the Obsidian throne, the very machinations that toppled you will swiftly return to the stage to topple you again. As much faith as I have for you, Your Grace, I do not hold much hope of you surviving a repeat. Zoe's fingers wrapped her ever tighter around her sword hilt.
Say, Cag, how hard do you think it would be to just blitz my way down into the crypt?
The listener tilted his head in thought, then shrugged his shoulders. Knowing you, I'm sure many would die in the process. If I may offer a suggestion, why not have one of the mortals retrieve it for you? Zoe sighed.
And why would they willingly...
And kill them afterwards. Zoe choked on a breath and whirled back towards the robed demon.
What?
Cagliostro chuckled. Come now, my queen. Whispering into the ears of mortals was a favorite pastime of yours. It was your soft whispers that created Silverland, after all.
It was your book of death magic that started it all.
Zoe looked away for a moment, then sighed. Your whispers also put Thomas Barrow on the throne, if I do recall. In an odd way, you set up the birth of Silverland by getting Ezra Barrow killed. Cagliostro's mask turned towards her. My queen, I've known you long enough to know that only two things motivate you. Vengeance or boredom. If you will indulge me, I may have a way to aid you in recovering the crown. Zoe narrowed her eyes as they faced each other. She impaled her blade into the pillar again, the demonic edge sliding like butter into the human marble.
You want to know the mystery behind Silverland for your stupid books?
Cagliostro chuckled. Guilty as charged, Your Highness. But you know that I record everything for the sake of knowledge and archiving. Zoe sighed.
Fine. To give it to you straight, getting overthrown wasn't a surprise to me. Stealing your book and giving it to the Mennonites hiding away from the war on that island was all set up. I planned ahead. I knew that after losing my memories, I would seek revenge against Nox because, come on, it's obvious in my weaker state that he'd find a way to piss me off.
Cagliostro nodded with great interest. You planned the rise of Silverland and their Lich King far in advance. Fascinating. Any particular reason why? Zoe looked up at the clouds for a moment, one hand on her hip.
Simple. I couldn't have predicted the artifacts beginning to appear after I had Thomas sack Blackrock for the demonic obsidian, but I did know I needed more kingdoms than the realm could hold. Garany was created for my spawning. Sigmara broke away from Midheim during the war and turned to the Angels for help. And Silverland did exactly what I expected them to with your book. They corrupted themselves and their island. 4 kingdoms that all hated each other, all messing with each other. A match waiting to be struck.
A bomb waiting to go off. The same with the Outland Kingdoms. Cagliostro chuckled. Why the Ascidian throne, my queen? Don't tell me you already foresaw how the ancient war would end and were in the process of writing a sequel. Cagliostro went silent for a moment. Perhaps Nox realized what you were up to. Zoe shrugged.
He did tell me he couldn't allow me to start another war as Lilith and Deimos held me down and Salem shoved his sword up through my chin. Perhaps you're right.
She glared.
Anyway, about getting into the vault.
Cagliostro nodded. Of course. A deal is a deal, after all. Cagliostro bent down and pulled a white piece of chalk from his robes, beginning to draw an arcane pentagram. You see, I share a special connection with my books. Even without a codex on hand, I can use that power to a limited extent, a power that's amplified the closer I get to one. As he finished, a black rift opened above the pentagram. My queen, if I may ask for one more favor. Zoe had already surmised what the wisdom demon was getting at.
One of your books is in there. You want me to get it for you while I'm robbing asbestos.
Cagliostro offered an uncharacteristic thumbs up. Zoe sighed.
Fine, I'll get your damn book.
I will owe you a favor of your choosing in exchange. Thank you. From the bottom of my cold heart, Your Highness. Zoe waved her hand dismissively and stepped through the rift. The rift spit Zoe out into what could basically be considered a warehouse built of stone. Hundreds of aisles of shelves and racks were spaced evenly, stone pillars erected at regular intervals, with warpstone torches. The lighting was atrocious, as the warpstones were small and green, casting the sickly and noxious glow across the crypt. Zoe turned slightly, hearing voices from a stone staircase behind her. Zoe stayed quiet. Asbestos was definitely in his quarters. She began to slowly walk round, idly poking at weapons, tools, trinkets, scrolls here and there. While many of the artifacts were labeled, many were not. Zoe was in awe at just how many artifacts the guild had collected over the years. She wagered the crypt spanned the entirety of the Isle of Pillars. She began to notice other things, crowns of fallen kings, broken swords of warriors lost to time. She even found the very blade that Thomas had used to cut down Ezra. Urza. She even found the very blade that Thomas had used to cut down Urza and their father to take the throne of Midheim.
Quite the collection, asbestos. Now that I've seen it, I'll make sure to dismantle it nice and slow. First, where's that stupid crown?
Zoe whirled around as she heard a metal creak. A metal claw reached out of the darkness, a regal dark metal halo hooked on one of the fingers. The fox demon took a step back and called out angrily.
I recognize that arm, Phobos. If you want a rematch, I'll crush that cage you hide and rip your true self to bits.
As the metal puppet stepped into the light, it let out a wheezy laugh before dragging a skull out from beneath the burlap that covered most of its upper body, like a horrific cloak. The jaw of the skull began to move, and a wheezy voice emanated from it.
Fanciers, yet not notice.
A wheezy laugh emanated from the metal head of the puppet. The skull began to speak again, cracking loudly as Phobos' claw was gripping it too tightly.
Sent to help. Finds crown. Queen's request.
Zoe hesitated before taking a few steps forward, sword still at the ready. She took the raven crown off Phobos' arm and took a few steps back.
I never asked for your help, puppet. Who are you talking about?
Phobos cackled asthmatically. It bothered Zoe how the metal puppet seemed to breathe despite lacking organs of any kind. Then again, Phobos' true self spread shadowy tendrils out from its cage to manipulate the puppet's limbs. Perhaps through some demonic influence it really was breathing. The skull spoke again.
New queen.
Zoe frowned.
Nox find some random bitch to sit on the throne? No, that wouldn't make sense. We wouldn't be here then.
She tapped her chin in thought.
Tell me who sent you. No time. Master of Guild is aware.
Phobos bent down and began to skitter forward on all four of his metal limbs, scaling a shelf and latching onto the ceiling before skittering off into the darkness. Zoe snarled.
Who told Asbestos I was down here?
As if on cue, the bookshelf that blocked access to the crypt began to move.
Screw your book, Cat. I'll get it for you later.
Zoe teleported with a spurt of demonic flame. Back in Darkstone's library, Styx sighed, swinging her feet from the floor up onto the table as she pushed a chair back onto two legs and clasped her hands together.
Are you sure sending Phobos to find Zoe was a good idea? I mean, I know it's been like 4 days, but surely...
She paused as Salem, who was pacing in front of the fireplace, raised a hand. He chuckled. Am I sure? My queen, you are the one that summoned him here and ordered him to go find and assist her. He'll do as he is told, then return to his duties. Styx twiddled her thumbs for a few moments before changing the subject.
Salem?
The Saint of Madness walked over and knelt in front of the chair. Yes, my queen. Styx hesitated.
Do you think Zoe will get violent over me trying to take the throne?
Salem chose his words carefully. She always was an unpredictable sort. She was remorseful over nearly killing you, as I recall, and she's done her utmost to be by your side, at least until she left to retrieve the Raven Crown. I cannot guarantee anything, but I suggest assuming it is a possibility, and preparing for it. Styx nodded slowly.
Right. But so far, we're prepared to read another codex. Rex?
Yes?
Did my question not come through?
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch it.
I was asking your thoughts so far while I prepare to read the next codex.
Oh, thoughts so far. Yeah, it's definitely getting interesting. The plotting and the scheming. Yeah, that's something that'll draw you in as a reader. I'm thinking about this, trying to picture this in my mind, almost like this sort of, gosh, you've got the makings for something like an anime or a live action adaptation after this, and I'm just trying to picture how all of that looks like. Yeah, but no, this is really good.
I'm glad you like it.
Yes, no, I really do. This is taking some interesting twists and turns, and I can kind of see some foreshadowing here, and it's, yeah, I'm thinking the finale is going to be a good one.
There's times where I'm just like, damn, I wrote this.
You see? You can do it.
Codex of Knowledge, Ferris. Embodying the ideal of evolution and innovation, the Iron Kingdom is known throughout the Outlands as the most The Iron Kingdom is known throughout the Outlands as the most technologically superior kingdom. However, Ferris is hampered by their reliance on technology. Without their complex machinery, they cannot function. Ferris is the only Outer Kingdom that is safe from the constant political and vengeful wars the other Outer Kingdoms wage off and on, making it the largest unified threat to the realm. Artifacts rarely manifest in the Iron Kingdom, and are usually overlooked due to a lack of knowledge regarding them. Its current ruler, King Zacharias, sought to weaponize the artisans within the kingdom in a violent move, causing most of its inventors to flee the kingdom in an event known as the infamous Sacking of the Arts. Primarily, he seeks the wisdom demon, Jacqueline da Vinci, the clockwork inventor, and her infamous black books, including the Codex of Machines. The military might of Ferris is vast and unique, but after the Sacking of the Arts, the creators of its stockpiles are long gone, forcing the military to train every man until they are nearly dead in the ground. Such training is necessary as the records to build and maintain the arcane and industrial weapons of Ferris are gone, and memories fade daily. The military of Ferris, previously relying on its once renowned artisans for a unique and powerful force, is now in a precarious situation. The original creators and maintainers of its weapons of war are long gone, necessitating a new conventional force, and a training and refamiliarization program for its old weapons. Such training is rigorous and long as the records to build and maintain the arcane and industrial weapons of Ferris are gone. Memories fade daily. It will be long before the military of Ferris is as previous might.
Chapter 21. Frost and Fire. Calico stepped out of the main gates of Hexad and looked round the gentle grasslands of heaven for a few moments before wandering off the main road into the nearby tree line and using Demonic to open a rift. The rift took her to the Blight Glades and to a small hovel that defiantly sat partially covered in ice, despite the warmth of the region. The Fallen hesitated for a moment, then knocked on the door. It swung open almost immediately to reveal the tall and burly form of a Gedonite, his right side mostly encased in ice, spikes rising from his shoulder, and his entire right arm itself no more than an ice spike. His flesh was cold, clammy, and very pale, blue veins crisscrossing beneath the cold leather armor the demon wore. Flecks of ice fell from his brown beard. Cyan eyes peered out from the eye holes of a horned helmet. He laughed heartily and reached out to grab Calico's shoulder. "Ha ha, Alexandria! It's good to see you again!" Despite his likeness to the Northman, his accent wasn't nearly as thick as those of the mortal realm. He pulled Calico into the hovel and closed the door.
Hello, Grimnir. You seem awfully happy today.
The ice demon led Calico into the main room where a multitude of shadow spiders of various and interesting shapes sat on a chessboard. Sitting on the floor next to the table and the board was Alana, sewing a blanket with her chitinous lower arms and commanding the spiders with her puppet hand. She waved a tendril at Calico.
Mistress.
Calico smiled at her.
How are you, Alana? I'm well.
Grimnir gently shoved Calico forward towards a feather-filled sofa. "Have a seat, my dear friend. I'll get you a drink." Calico slowly sat down before calling out.
Water will do fine, thanks, Grimnir.
His hearty voice called out in reply. "Nonsense, your wings are welted, your halo's dim. You've had a bad day, that's clear. I'm getting the strong stuff."
Alright, fine.
Calico settled herself a bit on the sofa and looked at the chessboard. It was weird to see Alana's shadow spiders distort themselves into the forms of chess pieces. Weirder still to see them bend the light enough to appear lighter to represent the white pieces.
Who's winning?
Grimnir's voice echoed back into the room. "Knight D3 to J6. One of the spiders stood up and made the legal version of whatever move Grimnir was trying to pull off. Alana giggled.
I am. Grimnir won the round before, though. He's much better at this when he can actually see the board.
Grimnir returned, shaking his head, to shake some ice fragments loose from his beard, then sat down heavily next to Calico, placing 3 cups on the table. 2 were filled with a yellow-colored wine, 1 with a reddish juice. Alana grabbed the juice with a puppet hand and took a sip.
Thank you, Grim.
"Oh, of course, my spider demon friend." Grimnir's cup was significantly bigger, more of an oversized mug, and he drained almost the entire thing in one go before slamming it back down, the wooden mug echoing through the room. Calico took a sip at first, then a larger swig and sighed. "Tell us what ails you, Alexandria." Calico hesitated for a moment.
Oh, just Petra being Petra. Lara's gone missing. Isaac and Lazarus have been following Argos around the dark steeps, looking for something or someone.
Calico shrugged. Grimnir took another large gulp of his drink. One of the chess spiders stood up and moved, followed by Grimnir reaching out and moving one with his hand. It's a pity you did not kill that six-winged bastard during the Hidden War.
Mistress tried. He's quite strong.
Calico took a long swig of her drink, and her balance began to waver despite sitting down.
What is this, Grimnir?
The Frost Demon chuckled. The strong stuff, Alexandria. He stood up. Apologies if it was a tad too strong. Calico shook her head slightly.
An apple do me good.
She put her cup down as Grimnir sat on the floor and crossed his legs beneath him, but tried to keep the noise down for you. Calico nodded and laid on the sofa.
Alana, if you wouldn't mind, could you send some spiders to Darkstone and Styx's cabin?
The Fallen yawned. Alana smiled softly.
Yes, mistress. I'll have something to report by the time you wake up.
Calico nodded before closing her eyes. Grimnir leaned forward a bit with a grin. All right, seamstress, show me what you got. Alana returned to grin, and one of the shadow spiders moved to a new spot on the board.
You asked for this.
Despite being exhausted, Calico listened to the pair duke it out over chess for a little while. It was an interesting situation. She'd met Grimnir and Alana at the same time. They'd lived here together for some time before Calico randomly came across them after the Hidden War, when she'd faked her death as the Queen of the Fallen. Grimnir's personality did not match his appearance, and he'd swiftly offered the homeless angel a place in his frost-coated hovel. He also had no qualms about Alana deciding to serve Calico. Almost like a little family, and would definitely seem like that to a demon, considering Alana's small stature. Although she was not a child demon, Calico let out a drunken giggle before finally falling asleep here, amongst friends. Styx sat alone in Darkstone's feasting hall, reading a book and occasionally glancing at the Raven Crown. Zoe had brought it to her to look at while the Fox Demon went off to do something else within the castle. Naturally curious, Styx had found a history book and tried to look up information about the Raven Crown. You look rather intrigued by that book, my queen. Styx nearly leapt out of a chair, frowning at Salem as he walked into her view. She sighed and leaned on her hand, going back to reading.
I wish you wouldn't pop out of the floor behind me like that.
Salem pulled out the nearest chair and sat down. Styx glanced at him.
Aren't you worried about Zoe? She's still here.
Salem chuckled. She's fixing a door. The Queen of Hell is many things, but handy with a hammer and nail is not one of them. I dare say she'll break the damn thing about 3 or 4 times before she actually truly fixes it. Salem reached under his hat and pulled out 3 soul contracts, laying them down on the table and unfurling them. I took the liberty of visiting Blackrock. Hope you don't mind, my queen. Styx raised an eyebrow at the contracts.
Callisto and Dismas, huh?
She looked at the third and her eyes widened.
Ignis? How'd you get his?
Salem chuckled. Easy. I told him the truth of the matter. Styx clapped her hands against her human ears, then poked at her wolf ears, and leaned forward with a misbelieving smile.
Sorry, for a second it sounded like you just gave away everything to one of the Dark Saints.
Salem nodded. I did. I promise you, my queen, I know what I am doing. Ignis is just as sick of Nox as I am. The second he realized our plans to dispose of Nox, he signed immediately. Styx sighed and laid her head on the table for a moment.
Thank you for the stretch and hydrate again, Cassie. Jesus Christ. I don't recall us ever talking about what to do with Nox.
She sat up.
But I guess it's true that taking the throne means he needs to be dealt with. He doesn't want to kill me after all.
She looked at Salem. She looked over as Salem patted her hand. Don't forget that if at any point I overstep my boundaries, if at any point you feel I am dishonest or outright treasonous, Styx interrupted.
I didn't forget, Salem. It feels weird to admit it, but I do trust you.
It pleases me to hear that, my queen. Styx glanced toward the entrance of the feasting hall, then took the contracts one by one, igniting each with green flame and feeling her connections to those souls. Tell me, my queen, what have you gleaned from this text? Styx idly poked the Raven Crown.
Rise forged this thing. It's an angelic halo, yet it's neither angelic or demonic. It also floats and warm.
She picked it up and held it above her head where it floated idly between her wolf ears. She had a small giggle.
Queen needs a crown, right?
She laid it back on the table.
You know, I still don't know why Zoe bothered to get it. It doesn't do anything.
Salem sat up a bit. Well, I had intended for her to retrieve it before she retrieved Misery's End. While I'm unsure why, she decided to continue with the task to gain the crown, possibly to slight asbestos. Either way, my scheme worked. Styx looked confused for a moment.
What do you mean?
She stopped and realized. I had always intended for it to be recovered for you, my queen. As you said, a queen needs her crown. Styx gripped the regal halo for a moment.
Salem, I'm not ready yet.
Salem exhaled softly and smiled. I know, my queen. Fear not. He stood up and pushed the chair back in. It is not my place to ask such things, but if you could get the fox to leave the castle for a day or two, I believe it's time we start working on teaching you how to utilize your aspect. Styx snorted.
Your aspect is shadow. How are you gonna do that?
Whilst that may be true, I do possess some knowledge. Styx blinked, her eyes regaining their mismatched color of green and purple. She smirked at him and laughed nervously.
I do hope you're not going to be the training dummy.
Salem chuckled. We'll figure out something, my queen. I must bid farewell for now. I fear if I continue this tardy streak, Nox will hollow out my head and use it as a cup. It began to melt into the ground. May our souls endure and deny all invitation to the river of death.
May the river flow with those that accept it.
Styx blinked, the grey returning to her eyes.
Tomorrow, then.
She thought she heard a creak like someone was outside the feasting hall, and a glance confirmed her fears. A shadowy spider sat there. She hesitated, then pretended she hadn't seen it.
Yet.
Styx was startled out of her thoughts by Zoe manifesting in the room and wordlessly ripping the Watcher's trench coat off.
What? Zoe, what the hell are you doing?
She gasped as Zoe began laughing and lifted the Watcher off her feet and onto the Hell Queen's shoulders. Zoe started walking.
Duck.
Styx ducked under the doorway to the hall.
And all the time we've known each other, you've never had a bubble bath, so I'm gonna treat you to one. Sounds great. Damn right it does.
Styx joined in Zoe's laughter, but deep down it still bothered her that this could all be an act of remorse and not a true act of love. And that brings us to the 2-hour mark, approximately. Do we want to close it here for now and pick up next week?
We can, yeah.
Okay, great. So we will continue on next week with Chapter 22, That Which Is Broken. We hope all of you have been enjoying this reading of The Realm, A Tale of Blood and Souls by Zoe the Demon Fox. Again, please follow us across all platforms, here on Twitch, also on Twitter. All of Zoe's links are available on her Twitch page and also on the card that's on her Twitter page. Everything for me is available at lordrexworth.com. That is lordrexworth.com. And on that note, shall we find someone to raid?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any suggestions?
I'll take a look in a second here. Need to close this so it doesn't...
If not, I can probably recommend some.
We could raid Diamond again. She's playing more...
tabletop
whatever it is
RPGs.
she's playing.
All right. Yeah. Let's do that then. Okay. Let me go ahead and set that up on my side. We're going to raid Diamond _ Dust underscore 320. And let me also prepare the copy pasta on my end for a most noble raid. And that'll do it for the both of us. I'm not sure what happened to Zoe's VDO, but I think we can still...
Oh yeah, I closed the thing. Whoops.
Oh, whoops. Well, anyways, actually, you know what? Let me bring back your... There we go. Swap that out real quick. There we go. Got something up on the screen here. Right. Chat on both sides, thank you all for joining us. I will see everybody Saturday on Scourgy's channel for Catalyst Blind Faith, a live performance for that. Until then, I'm Lord Rexworth, wishing you all the best and God bless.